Algerian President Abdelmadjid Tebboune attacked the Kingdom of Morocco and its symbols in an interview with the French magazine Le Point, considering that the monarchy is Algeria's #1 enemy, while he turned to courting the Moroccan people, considering that he had respect for him. President Tebboune returned to point the finger of accusation at Morocco, blaming it for all the tensions, disputes and estrangements, and even accusing the monarchy of being behind what happened and threatening revenge. The provocations escalated after the exposure of Algeria's involvement, accompanied by the government of Pedro Sanchez, in bringing the leader of the separatist Polisario front to Spain with a false Algerian passport bearing a false name, before returning to complete his treatment trip in an Algerian hospital and receiving the visit of the Algerian president alongside General Chanegriha. In an interview with the French magazine Le Point, Thursday, the Algerian president issued warnings about any contemplation of an attack on Algeria, stressing that the land borders with Morocco will remain closed. Algeria and Morocco share a land border that stretches 1,500 kilometers from the Mediterranean to the Sahara. These borders have been closed since 1994 after disputes over security. Tebboune considered that for a long time, Morocco has always been the aggressor, adding, "The estrangement comes from Morocco, precisely from the monarchy, not the Moroccan people, whom we respect. It was interesting to say, we will never attack our neighbor, but we will take revenge if we are attacked, but I doubt that Morocco will try, especially since the balance of power is the same." Some see four main reasons behind the statements. The Algerian authorities' belief that Morocco has a role in the country's political crisis, the Moroccan Sahara file, Morocco's normalization of its relations with Israel, and the approaching date of early parliamentary elections on June 12. Some Algerian analysts believe that the Algerian authorities accuse the Moroccan intelligence of financing some Algerian opponents with the aim of sowing discord and destabilizing the country. He added, "The issues that pollute relations also are the drug issue, as Algeria believes that Morocco is deliberately dumping the Algerian market with it." In an interview with the French magazine Le Point, Thursday, the Algerian president issued warnings about any contemplation of an attack on Algeria, stressing that the land borders with Morocco will remain closed. For its part, the Algerian newspaper Al Shorouk had previously published a lengthy article saying, informed sources revealed the recent developments imposed by the Moroccan regime with a military intervention in the Guerguerat region, which made Algeria adjust its new approach to the desert issue, as it represents from now on a sovereign issue related to mainly with the strategic security depth of its national territory, and it is no longer limited to being a matter of principle related to self-determination, in accordance with its external constance in support of just causes of liberation across the world since the outbreak of the Fadi Revolution of November. The newspaper adds, in this way, the high source adds, the Algerian state institutions, both civil and security, are currently dealing with the desert scene, not out of seeking to liquidate the last colonialism in the region only, but also according to the approach of preserving their higher interests and protecting their regional security from the behavior of the storehouse in the region. And in the occupied desert lands in particular, after he dared to violate international legitimacy and the ceasefire agreement, with Emirati, Zionist and French complicity. While the newspaper Al Shorouk highlighted what it described as previous attacks carried out by units of the Polisario Front on November 18 and 19, which targeted strongholds of the Moroccan army, the Moroccan His Press website denied this, saying, "The Polisario continues separatism is promoting lies and inaccuracies about launching massive attacks against the Royal Armed Forces in the Moroccan Sahara along the security barrier." Algeria and Morocco share a land border that stretches 1,500 kilometers from the Mediterranean to the Sahara. These borders have been closed since 1994 after disputes over security. The dispute between the two neighbors has flared up since December 10, 2020, when Israel and Morocco announced the resumption of diplomatic relations, with American mediation and with a Moroccan gain represented by former U.S. President Donald Trump's recognition of sovereignty over Western Sahara. Despite this, according to Boukalf, Algeria does not see itself as a party to the Sahara issue, but rather stresses resolving the crisis within the framework of the United Nations, through a dialogue between Morocco and the Polisario Front. According to the expert, among the major points of contention between Morocco and Algeria is the issue of the Sahara, which was a Spanish colony, and Morocco annexed most of its lands to it in 1975. Algeria supports and hosts the Polisario Front, which calls for the independence of the Sahara, which angers Morocco. The leader of the Polisario Front, Ibrahim Ghali, had arrived in Algeria on Wednesday morning, after his travel for treatment in Spain more than a month ago sparked a diplomatic dispute between Spain and Morocco. While some believe that the Algerian army is unable to solve its internal problems and meet the demands of the popular movement, Moroccan newspapers said that the Algerian president's statements express hatred against Morocco. And Lazrak considered that the Tebboune regime is maneuvering on Algerian public opinion to distract attention from the movement that demands in a civilian, not a military state, by escalating with Morocco to show an external enemy of the country, he said. The weekly protests, calling for an end to corruption, the overthrow of the old ruling elite and the army's withdrawal from politics, did not stop until March 2020. When Algeria imposed general isolation measures due to COVID-19. Algeria, with a population of 44 million and a member of the Organization of the Petroleum Exporting Countries, OPEC, is under financial pressure due to the sharp decline in profits from energy resources, forcing the government to cut spending and postpone some of the planned investment projects that Tebboune has pledged to implement. Lazrak added, the Algerian army is using the scarecrow of Moroccan hostility, which is a failed attempt by it to numb the Algerian masses who are looking forward to freedom, dignity and development. He expressed his fears that the deterioration of the social and economic situation in Algeria will suffocate the regime and push it towards a war with Morocco. He continued, the country is heading towards constitutional benefits, for a regime that has lost its legitimacy, and therefore is seeking to disperse the public for electoral benefit. Here, the Algerian analyst agreed that Tebboune's recent statements should be in the context of mobilizing the largest possible number of citizens around power, especially that Algerians are particularly sensitive when it comes to an external opponent. Some reveal that the recent escalation between Morocco and the Polisario Front has something to do with the front's sense that its cause is no longer of interest to the world and that the countries supporting it have abandoned it or are preoccupied with more important issues, so they decided to draw attention and revive the conflict through what they did by provocation in the neutral zone, but also there is a fear that parties outside the immediate parties to the crisis are behind the recent escalation and want to strain the situation in Morocco and between it and Algeria.